All right, welcome everybody to The Truth Hurts. You've tuned into the program where we expose corrupt politicians and the lying corporate media. I'm your host, Jake Duesenberg, and we're trying something really brand new. We've got some new software. We're trying to do this deep fake type of technology and it looks like it's working on the screen. I should look and sound like Mark Bishofsky, so don't be fooled. It's Jake here, and I've got, as always, I've got MAGA Jesse with me here today. I appreciate you.
It's great to be with you, Jake. It's great to be with you. And the deepfake technology, it looks great on the screen. I would have been fooled. I would be thinking Mark Bishofsky is in the studio for The Truth Hurts hosting it. That's what I would think. I'd think Mark Bishofsky is guest hosting this thing, and it looks like the people in the comments are excited to get things started off here. We got Base Minnesota saying, "Good to see Bishofsky back again. The guy eats red pills for breakfast, lunch, and dinner." We got G. Ballstad saying Bishofsky is the real deal. Asks legit questions while hunting for the truth. Thanks, Mark. Yes. But really, thank you, Jake.
Yes, so really amazing technology. I mean, honestly, though, folks, you got to be careful what you're viewing out there, because I think the technology does exist where they could pull something like this off. So I think I'm actually Mark Bishofsky, and it's awesome to be here. I think Jake's out having fun or something while we're here doing the hard work, exposing the corrupt politicians and the lying corporate media. And as always, we've got Deep State Dawson running the dials back there. I appreciate Dawson more than anyone could imagine. I have a show also on Rumble, The Truth Expedition. You should check that out. But Dawson runs the dials there. I'm so grateful here to be in the belly of the beast in Roseville, Minnesota at Action for Liberty headquarters. The studio is incredible. And, the content that's getting pumped out of here is ultra important. So today would be a great program for which you could ask questions. We're looking at the comments now. So if you've got questions for myself or Jesse, please do ask. We've got some topics to talk about here. What are we going to start with first, Jesse? We're going to talk about the MNGOP Trump lawsuit.
Oh, yeah. So this is something a lot of people have been following this stuff. When you look at the lawsuit that's going on right here in Minnesota, where we have rhinos and we have Democrats who are trying to take Trump off of the ballot for both of the primary and the general. These are the people who claim to love democracy. Those are the people who want to thwart our democracy and not allow us to be able to vote for who we want for president. And, I'm also seeing Tucker says that Dawson is doing some very good work over there. So it looks like the AI fooled him as well.
It's working, yeah.
And so what's going on with this Trump lawsuit, it's reached a whole new level, and there's some more things that we need to expose. So let's go ahead and pull up that article. We have a new article out there on actionforliberty.com. People can go and read that for themselves, where we have found out and we have uncovered that an anti-liberty, anti-Action for Liberty attorney is the one who is going to be working on behalf of Trump for this ballot removal case here in Minnesota. So go ahead and scroll down a little bit. And what you'll see there, that is the email that the MNGOP had sent out. I'm sure a lot of people watching this show were recipients of that email. They had seen that, oh, look at that, the MNGOP is stepping up to fight on behalf of Trump to make sure that he is kept on the ballot. That's, of course, an important fight, but what we found out in that email is that the Trump campaign is not allowed to represent Trump in this case. It's going to be the MNGOP. That raised alarms big time for me at the time, because I thought, can the MNGOP be trusted on something like this? So just to tell you guys what this article says, out of the blue this week, the Republican Party of Minnesota sent out a fundraising email asking for donations to keep Trump on the ballot in Minnesota. We reported a couple of months ago that there was an effort by rhinos and Democrats to keep Trump off the 2024 election ballot, which will be argued in front of the Minnesota Supreme Court. So the MNGOP sent out this fundraising email. They see this as an opportunity to be able to fundraise and take money from the grassroots, because what are the grassroots going to see when reading an email like this? They think that David Hann and the MNGOP are actually trying to fight for Trump. However, we know that's not the case. We know that they're actually anti-MAGA, never Trumpers. At a recent State Central Committee meeting, I had passed a resolution that called out the indictments, the phony witch hunt indictments against President Trump, and saying that the MNGOP needed to take a stand against it because this is the sort of political injustice system that is abusing Americans all across our country. We were able to successfully pass it, but the MNGOP didn't want to let people know. The MNGOP didn't send out any kind of notification email. They didn't want to alert people to the fact that the State Central Committee stood up against these indictments. Additionally, when we looked at when Trump was initially being indicted, when his home was being raided, where was the MNGOP? Completely silent. That's what the MNGOP has done in a lot of cases with Trump. It was obvious that throughout 2020 and especially in this 2024 election, it's obvious that they don't have Trump's best interest in mind, and they have now hired an attorney who is anti-AFRL, anti-liberty, who is going to be representing Trump on this case. So return that article back on there and scroll down just a little bit. So we've now learned that the MNGOP plans on exhausting big resources in this court case and has hired anti-liberty lawyer Reed LeBeau as Trump's last line of defense to staying on the ballot. LeBeau is the establishment's go-to lawyer who often does the dirty work for them against grassroots conservatives like you and I. Most notably, LeBeau wrote and filed an erroneous campaign finance complaint against Action for Liberty. So this is a person, we know Reed LeBeau very well, and we know exactly what his dirty tricks are, and the fact that he is going to be the person, a guy who is obviously a rhino, who hates the grassroots conservatives, who has proven that time and time again, is our last hope for Trump. Give me a break. Reed also was the retained counsel for the MNGOP in the summer of 2022 when the party cut off data access for endorsed candidates like Natalie Barnes, like Mark Bishofsky, right? And Brett Busman. There's a whole list. People can learn that for themselves because Reed LeBeau was the attorney at that time, and his law firm, Jacobson Law Group, which is Jacobson, Magnuson, Anderson, Halloran, PC, which is a heavy lobbyist presence in the Capitol, hired one of the con artist Democratic legislators, Rob Eklund, who protected Governor Walz's illegal emergency powers in 2020 and 2021. And also, they're very well known for their gambling interests of the metro area tribes, which is one of their biggest clients. And a huge development, too. We found out that when we were digging through the campaign board finance filings of this Jacobson, Magnuson, Anderson, and Halloran PC, this group, we find out that the MNGOP paid them $200,000 the day before the general election in 2022, the day before the election, when all of those $200,000 could have been used to help elect good conservatives.
Like Tom DePel,
maybe? Tom DePel, right, in all of these swing districts across our country. That $200,000 would have gone a long way in mailers. It would have gone a long way in getting door knockers. It would have gone a long way with a lot of things, but they chose instead to give it to Reed LeBeau. For what purposes? Nobody really knows. They say that they wanted to make sure that they had enough money in case they needed to do any recounts. That's the kind of thing that you could fundraise off of and get real money for. You don't need to pay someone beforehand. And it's just obvious that Reed LeBeau and his group are the chosen attorneys of the establishment for the Republican establishment, and Donald Trump needs to be made aware of this. So all of my people on Truth Social, anytime that Trump posts, put this article underneath because we need to make sure that the Trump campaign is fully aware of what's going on here. And then also November 2nd, the date where the Minnesota Supreme Court is going to be ruling on this case, where they are going to be opening up this case for the first time. We need people there. We need patriots ready to protest, stand up for Trump, and also just stand up to the corruption. And also we need to expose how the MNGOP are a bunch of grifters, MAGA grifters, pretending to be one of us, but they're really not. And so that all needs to be exposed. And so let me pose this to you, Mark. What do you think is the purpose of the MNGOP putting someone like Reed LeBeau onto this case? Do we think that they actually want Trump off the ballot? Do we think that they are purposely setting this up so that they fail? Are they trying to get a victory so that they can look strong to the MAGA people? What's your perspective on this?
I couldn't even... for many reasons, have a reasonable opinion on that. For a lot of reasons, I don't know. I would hope not. I would hope not. So a couple things that you said there that come to mind, are striking to me, and I think that needs to be clarified for the audience. For later, I want to ask you, Jesse, what it would mean to the state if they succeed and Trump's not on the ballot. But when you mentioned that $200,000 being spent the day before the election. I think it needs to be made clear who Tom DePel is and how much he lost by and what is the aftermath of him losing. So what was done to Tom DePel? He lost by what, 151 votes, 160 votes?
Yeah, it was some
Senate race.
ridiculous
a tiny
margin.
amount. And establishment, Senate Victory Fund, I think, came after him, spent a lot of money against him. Didn't provide him with door knockers. It wouldn't take much. Having been in a campaign to just flip 150 votes is nothing. Is nothing. Tom DePel should have won with any reasonable support. He would have won.
Right.
And none of what this legislation that has passed this last session and the garbage that's going to pass in the next session. We have to deal with a whole nother session. And to think about what we're dealing with, Second Amendment rights going away, transgendering kids, the voting laws that they've changed, abortion, all of these things that have happened would not be happening if we'd have controlled the Senate. And if DePel wins, we control the Senate. None of it happens.
Right. I'm with you on that. And, I had a meeting one-on-one with David Hannon. I talked to him about the Tom DePel situation because I couldn't believe that the MNGOP kind of, didn't have his back in the most important time when they really could have, when they really needed him, and it would have flipped the entire Senate so that we would have had at least something to go off of in this government. I mean, if we would have had a Republican majority Senate, we can hold off at least some of this craziness. The transgender bill, for example, that's one that 100% would have been blocked if Republicans had control of the Senate. It's unbelievable. And, based on what people are saying in the ground on that district, they were told by David Hand not to what's the term when you, oh man, I can't think right now. When you put out a statement saying that you condemn a candidate. A censure. There was some people who wanted to censure Tony Jurgens for endorsing Judy Seeberger, going against Tom DePel, preventing a Republican majority in the Senate. And apparently, David Hand and others in the MNGOP said, "Oh no, that's not a good move. We shouldn't be doing that." How else are we supposed to hold these Republicans accountable if not through actions like censuring? So I'm 100% with you, and you're right that a lot of this needs to be exposed for what it is. And when the MNGOP is choosing to direct their resources to fund an establishment grifter attorney instead of funding a grassroots candidate, it goes to show exactly where their priorities are.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. If anyone followed my campaign, I don't know exactly how much, but groups affiliated with Republican establishment spent, some people say 50-some thousand, depends on how you look at the numbers, $70,000. My race turns out it would have been inconsequential. Just me winning wasn't going to change the House. We weren't going to win the House and that. But the DePel situation, that's a big deal. You give him just a couple more door knockers, one mailer, and it's done. And probably the abortion bill doesn't pass. I mean, much of this, you're going to have a roadblock there. And so it's not good. It's not good at all. And so what would happen, in your opinion, Jesse, one would think that Trump probably, if he's on the ballot, probably doesn't win. If elections were fair, maybe he would, but probably doesn't win Minnesota anyway. But what kind of consequence would it be if he's not even on the ballot?
Right, and that's the thing, I do think 2024 is going to be more competitive than what we saw in 2020, and I think that, Trump does have a chance to win Minnesota, but you're right that, based on, if you look at the last few elections and what's been going on in Minnesota, we've been trending blue and it's not looking good, but, that doesn't mean that people shouldn't fight at all. But what would happen is if the Minnesota Supreme Court were to rule that Trump should not be allowed on the ballot because he caused an insurrection and because he wanted to, change the results of the election, even though all he was calling for was an investigation into certain states. But if the Minnesota Supreme Court were to rule that, this is going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And it seems as if the U.S. Supreme Court is going to rule that Trump is allowed on the ballot. The same kind of thing is going on in Colorado, a few other states where they're trying to take Trump off the ballot. It would be massive if they tried to take him off the primary ballot in Minnesota, and if they were able to successfully do that in other states, because if they can prevent Trump from being the nominee, that does a whole lot for them. And I think that's the only way that they can prevent Trump from being the nominee, because it's so obvious that as the primary has gone on, Trump supporters continue to tick up while the opponents have continued to drop down. And part of that is because, a lot of these other candidates aren't running very good campaigns. But also part of it is just the fact that everybody is seeing the way that they're treating Donald Trump, and they see how corrupt it is. And that's why I think a lot of the grassroots conservatives are standing up to it. And I'm seeing a couple of comments here, and Tucker is asking, has anyone in the MNGOP even endorsed Trump yet? And the only one that I know of is Senator Nathan Weissenberg, who did it on this show. Besides that, I have not seen any other legislators or members of the MNGOP doing that. But also, the leaders of the MNGOP are supposed to remain neutral, but the problem is they're not ever truly remaining neutral, the David Hand types. Bad Hat Harry says, what can be done? Do conservatives attempt to reform the MNGOP or push a third party? And Mark, I think you should hit on that one too. I would say that the MNGOP is I believe that there is room for reform there, and I think that it can be taken over by patriots because it's the only party that we got really right now, and for conservatives. So I would say the answer is not a third party, but what would you say on that?
Yeah, I don't think third party either. If you know what's happening up north, Bull Johnson, I think they've organized a third party, the Constitutional Republic Party. I think. I mean, they're good people, but the more kind of rhino the Republican Party gets, the more people want to leave it, and the MNGOP does need to remain neutral. In fact, I got to be careful here. I have to be neutral. I was elected to be on the executive committee, full disclosure there, so I can't say one way or another. And so, and I hate this. Not being able to just speak my mind. It's ridiculous. But no, I can't endorse anyone. And at this point, to tell you the truth, I haven't made a decision. I think you have to let this play out. And, I don't trust the political system to begin with. Anyone who knows me knows this, and I think that's why I garnered so much support in my district, because I'm a regular person who wants to use common sense. And I think we need a smaller government and all that stuff. But I hope, I think the grassroots, if you saw the last state convention, it was like 49% of the people that were state delegates were new. So there's a lot of new people, a lot of good people coming to get active within the party establishment. So maybe at some point the establishment won't be so establishment. It'll be more grassroots. Because in Minnesota, we're unique, and most of the viewers probably know, but if you don't, we're one of few states that have a caucus system where grassroots conservatives choose who they want to, run for them in House districts in the Senate. They go to conventions, they decide, okay, we want this person to be our Republican nominee to run in the general. But as we found out, the establishment doesn't always agree, and they fight it. From the side, because they can't technically. I wasn't, the MNGOP did not fight me, but it's well known that organizations that are affiliated with the HRCC did. Now I'm kind of going off on a tangent there, but if you don't understand how Minnesota's unique and how we really are, it's, I think, to our benefit that the grassroots is kind of involved much more than other states where there's just a primary. So the people paying really close attention to the candidates make the decision.
And, I'm with you on that. There's pros and cons to the caucus system. I think there's more pros, though, because it allows grassroots people to be able to be even more involved than they normally would. And it gives them, real insight into the process. So I'm with you on that. And I'm also seeing Brad Ganser here. He says, if Trump is the nominee and this guy, meaning Reed LeBeau, fails to get Trump on the ballot, he will end up on the wall of shame with Tony Jurgens. And you're right, that if David Hand and this Reed LeBeau drop the ball on this Trump lawsuit, they're going to have hell to pay for it, because the MNGOP grassroots, the grassroots conservatives around this state are not going to be happy if the MNGOP fails on this. So the MNGOP has backed themselves into a corner. I think they're grifting because they want to pose as if they're MAGA, even though we know deep down David Hand and a lot of the others in the MNGOP cannot stand Trump. So it's an interesting situation what's going on there, and we'll be continuing to track it to alert you guys what's going to be coming down the pike on that one.
Yeah, and where I stand on Trump, and I don't have an opinion. I haven't made a decision. As a member of the executive committee, I'm going to support whoever the nominee is. But people who have a problem with Trump, a friend of mine makes this metaphorically speaking. If you're flying to, let's say, France, and you're choosing between your pilots, do you want a pilot that can fly the plane, get the job done, get you there in one piece? Or are you going to choose the pilot who isn't, in an affair or whatever? You want the person that's going to do the best job. Trump's, not politically correct all the time.
Right.
So you can't really, it's the president of the United States. Who's going to do the best job as the president of the United States, not who's, his Twitter rants. And I don't agree with all that.
That's a great analogy. Would you rather have the pilot that's going to say a few politically incorrect jokes on the intercom, or would you rather have the pilot that's falling asleep at the wheel? You'd rather have the guy that's going to say a couple of radical, crazy things.
Right. Yep. So, I don't agree. Trump's, he's done some dumb things, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. We all do. I have too. So,
yep.
But when it comes to political decision-making, I think he did a damn good job, a lot better than our current president, no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's maybe switch gears here a little bit. So, current events, Speaker of the House situation, Jordan failed on 2 votes, I believe, and now it sounds like they're not going to vote today for Speaker of the House and might vote for a resolution to have a temporary speaker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. It's pretty interesting, and this stuff has been developing as we were planning out the show and everything, because we were looking at it, thinking that, okay, Jordan might hold a 3rd vote today. We might see what goes on. But that was apparently, they pulled the plug on that one. And as you guys are probably aware, that between the first ballot and the second ballot, he had even more detractors. And that was despite the fact that he got people like Victoria Spartz and a couple of other people to shift onto his side as well. But one of the latest detractors was our very own Pete Stauber here in Minnesota. So we can go ahead and pull up that article, Dawson, on line 8, and people can see this for themselves too, because this is an article you'll find on actionforliberty.com going over what's going on within this speaker race. So go ahead and scroll down a little bit there, Dawson. And what we describe in this article is the tactic that was used by the establishment in order to prevent Jim Jordan from becoming the speaker. And basically, the way that it's this strategy called vote parking. It's something that we've seen in Minnesota, especially with the caucus system, the convention system. It's a tactic that certain campaigns use sometimes. And the way that it works is you have a few people who are anti-Jim Jordan in this case, but they're going to vote for Jim Jordan in that first round. And then when the second round comes, they flip their vote. So that it looks like the momentum is not with Jim Jordan, the momentum is against Jim Jordan. That was the purpose of what they were doing, and that's why someone like Pete Stauber is doing something like that. Pete Stauber, of course, he preferred Steve Scalise. He preferred Kevin McCarthy. He preferred almost all of the establishment choices over the conservative choices. So it comes as no surprise that he was doing this, but it shows that first round he was doing a fake vote. He claims that it's because, it's obvious to me that Jim Jordan can't win the support of the caucus. Well, he was staying silent on it for a reason. There was a lot of people who were pointing out, we don't know how Stauber's going to vote. We don't know how Stauber's going to vote. And then he voted for Jim Jordan. So we thought, okay, I guess he came to a resolution. But of course, Stauber decides the next day he wants to vote against Jim Jordan, setting the stage for the situation that we're in now. And it's funny, people like Pete Stauber, they were all up in arms over what Matt Gaetz was doing when they needed to remove the speaker because Kevin McCarthy wasn't living up to his word. That's what the whole thing's about. It's not a personality thing. It's not about how much we like Kevin McCarthy or not. It's not about that. Kevin McCarthy made promises in January that we were going to have single subject bills. Bills were going to be read 72 hours in advance to a floor vote. Kevin McCarthy had promised that, amendments could be offered on the floor. He was saying that he wasn't going to tie things together into, one massive spending bill. There were lots of, and also releasing the full J6 footage, which still hasn't happened. So when we look at all of the things that he promised and how none of them really got accomplished, it makes perfect sense for someone like a Matt Gaetz to stand up and say, you're not living up to your word. We're going to remove you. Now, it looks as if Jim Jordan is sort of the America First conservative choice in this situation, especially because, he was able to get the nomination. I still have some issues with him. Nobody's perfect. It looks like there's some problems he might have, and that's okay because then, once he's the speaker, we hold his feet to the fire. It's just a continuing game like that because we always need to hold the pressure onto these politicians that are in charge of our country, and especially when we're talking about issues as important as World War III and the globalist takeover of our government. And news has developed here. Let's go ahead and pull up line 9 on the sheet there, because Jim Jordan and others within the House are now calling on Patrick McHenry, the Speaker pro temp, to be given temporary powers to act fully as if he is the Speaker of the House in order to maybe be able to push through some legislation. Maybe they want to fund Israel. Maybe it's some other things. But go ahead and scroll down there a little bit. Keep going. There was a section in there that listed out how some of the Republicans weren't happy. Keep going down. Yep, keep going. I think you might have passed it. Well, regardless, I'll find it and let Dawson know. But basically, there were all of these Republicans out there who were saying, Matt Gaetz, Eli Crane, Matt Rosendale, who were saying that we don't want to give this sort of temporary power to Patrick McHenry because it sets up such a bad precedent for the future. We don't want to be able to have a Speaker pro temp with unlimited authority who's able to, do the job of the Speaker. It doesn't make sense. It's not systematically correct. And also this Patrick McHenry, he's a total rhino. We could see how physically upset he was when they removed Kevin McCarthy, when they weren't able to get Steve Scalise in there. So Patrick McHenry, he's a total establishment tool who cannot be trusted at all. And the fact that the establishment is trying to leverage that against Jim Jordan is pretty remarkable. And Jim Jordan now is doing the wrong thing, saying he supports giving this temporary power to Patrick McHenry. I think it's a bad move for Jim Jordan. I think that he's hurting himself in that engagement. But the good news is that the House Freedom Caucus, Scott Perry and others within the caucus, are saying that is not the correct way that we should be doing this. We need to stand up to it. So we'll see what ends up going on within the floor. It's going to be very interesting to see if they want to give Patrick McHenry this sort of special power.
So does it require the same vote threshold as it would to vote for a Speaker?
That's a really good question. I'd imagine that this one would only need a simple majority because, you require 216 for the Speaker, but...
which means all of the Republicans, except for 4 of them, would have to vote to elect Jordan, correct?
Right, exactly. And, the fact that number has grown from, I think it was 20 to 21 or 22 now, the establishment is trying to make it look like Jordan doesn't have the momentum. He can't be chosen. Some of these people are still voting for Kevin McCarthy on the floor. I mean, give me a break. It's unbelievable. Some of them are voting for Steve Scalise, including Mike Simpson from Idaho, who I knew that rhino years ago. So it's nice to see that he's finally exposing himself for the rhino that he is.
So they're making a big deal out of this. So what, Jesse, do you feel like is the tangible? What importance is the Speaker of the House? I mean, is it just that they have the microphone more? Is it the soapbox they have? I mean, what power does the Speaker of the House have? I mean, they're making a big deal out of it.
Right. Oh, yeah. And, in some ways they're making a bigger deal out of it than it needs to be, but also there are, very important roles and responsibilities and duties of the Speaker of the House, including choosing appointments for committees. That's a very important thing because if you're a congressman who goes in there, you want to work on specific issues, you have to kind of get along with the Speaker to make sure that you're going to be put on the correct committee. Also, Speaker is the next in line after VP for succession. If and especially in a case like this, and we have Joe Biden, anything, that guy looks like he could slip and fall and lose his life at any given moment. So when we're in a situation like that, the line of succession is very important. But
so
the Speaker,
Harris, and then right now it would be who?
Yeah, it'd be VP Harris. It'd be Kamala after him,
so
and then
with no actual
in
speaker,
this situation, I think it would maybe just move on to further on into the line of succession. But unless they would give it to Patrick McHenry since he's the acting, I don't know. That in that kind of situation, it would be totally up in the air, and I think that we'd have constitutional lawyers coming from all different angles, and they'd be debating it big time. And yeah, it also one of the biggest things about being the Speaker is you get to choose which bills are going to make it on the floor. You get to choose which bills are going to be debated in the committees, and that's where the real authority is. Because if you get to determine which votes are going to happen on the floor, you can always choose votes, refuse votes that are going to be tough votes for a lot of these politicians to take, like term limits. There's a reason that Kevin McCarthy never wanted to have term limits on the floor, and it's because it's an uncomfortable vote for politicians to have to make. So there's lots of things like that where the Speaker has real authority over what votes are going to be made. They also get to control the microphone, who's good to speak in a debate on the floor session. So this is a major role, and it's pretty nuts that we're in a position where, we don't have one. I like it better when we don't have one, honestly, but the GOP would be making a huge mistake if they give Patrick McHenry this authority for a temporary period of time.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens today with that. And, the more we sit here and talk about politics, the more it just brings me to want to just declare that I can't stand it. Mm-hmm. I can't stand the games that are played, and I want, I think government is a cancer. It's just something that grows, gets bigger, and destroys. All empires fail from the corruption from within. Mm-hmm. The government becomes so corrupt. We see this. And if any leftists out there watching, can you not agree with me that government's corrupt?
Yeah.
And that we should just have a smaller government so that it can be less corrupt.
Right. I think a lot of liberals forget that. They say stuff like universal health care. It's like, you realize the government, we're talking about the same government here, right?
Yeah.
It's like they forget that, how corrupt it is. And a lot of them know it too. They say, Mitch McConnell's so corrupt. Well, why would you give him more power? We're the type of people that say, yeah, we agree he's corrupt. Let's give those types of people less power. And also I'm seeing here in some of the comments here, so Brad Ganser says Jim Jordan had 2 weeks to get the votes and he failed. That should say something about his abilities as a legislator. And, that's an interesting point. I'm not a Jim Jordan stan. I'm not, die hard with Jim Jordan. I like a lot of what he did. I like that he was a wrestler. I like how his mind works on a lot of things, but there is something to say about a guy who didn't get any bills passed through committee, who doesn't get any bills passed through the House. Of course, it's a corrupt system, so good ideas don't normally make it through anyway, but, that's an interesting point, Brad. I get where you're coming from. Also good to see T-Wall and K-Wall in the comments there, and that's right, T-Wall, yeah. Patrick McHenry was the guy who slammed down that gavel that one time, and let's see here, and New 2727, you're right. That is, it is the Secretary of State that's next in line for the succession after that. And yeah, let's see. Yep, it looks like other people are just enjoying the comments there and going through some of this stuff. And yeah, this is a great thing to break down. I think a lot of people are very interested in what's gone on in this speaker race. I'm hoping this continues on for a few more weeks, hopefully all the way until the end of the legislative session, because this drama is much better than what they would actually be passing anyway if they were in Congress.
Yeah, and we apologize. We're missing the expert perspective of Jake Duesenberg, or are we?
Yeah.
Who's who here? But yeah, Jake's probably listening. I'm sure he's got some comments, and he can chime in at any time. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that today and in the coming days. And I think we're going to move on to, so Bobby Kennedy announced as I don't know if that was talked about on the show or not, but we're going to talk a little bit about that, but announced as an independent. And Jesse and I have been talking about that, and there's a lot of talk that that's really actually going to hurt Trump because, I mean, you got to believe Trump's going to be the nominee. And, I believe it probably does hurt Trump more than Biden in that, the whole medical freedom movement, which kind of sucked a lot of people over from the left to the conservative side, would probably side with Kennedy. Kennedy says a lot of good things. He's against the global elite, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, the whole biosecurity state, the whole mandate thing. I do think he's a little anti-2A and very much pro-choice. So there's that. But what were your thoughts? Do you think he's going to take more from Trump or Biden?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I do think that, like you said, there were some liberal people who kind of got swayed over as time went on with the COVID tyranny, where they were seeing all these vaccine mandates and whatnot, and they decided, okay, if that's what the Democratic Party stands for, then I'm not with the Democrats anymore. And, so RFK does tap into definitely some of that mindset big time. And, there's the hippie types as well that are just kind of, non-GMO types who, organic foods, organic farming, who, prefer to live their lives in a very clean, environmentally friendly way. So, and there's people like that who definitely will appeal
that'll
to
take
that.
from Biden.
And also, I'm seeing a couple of Rumble rants here. So, K-Wall for life, thank you for the $10. How does RFK Jr. get on all 50 ballots as an independent, that's a great question. It's going to be very tough for him. And, when you look at the all the different states, every state has their own rules for trying to get somebody on the ballot as an independent. Some of them make it almost impossible. Some of them, like Ohio, Texas, New York, they've limited it just as badly as you can. So,
do you know the limits? Like, what would it take in a really severe, extreme situation? Right. What would it take for him to be on the ballot? Any idea?
So I would say, at least for Minnesota, for example, it would take 2,000 signatures for him to get on the ballot. So he would need to go out, collect 2,000 signatures. Depending on the state, some of them have even more. I mean, some states require 15,000 signatures. Some of them are requiring just enormous asks that, almost no candidate would be able to do. But I think that RFK Jr., of the other independent third-party candidates out there, he probably has the resources to be able to fund some of this stuff. But I would not be shocked if he fails to get on all of the ballots, because it's just such a tough system to, and it's state by state. And then we also got T-Wall for life. Thank you very much for the $15. Says, I'd vote for RFK Jr. over Joe Biden. And I think all of us are in the same boat on that one. I'd vote for a potato over Joe Biden.
So would I. And I think what we need is, they got to suck from the Democrats. Those moderate he's a Kennedy. How many Kennedy Democrats are out there? There's got to be a lot. I mean, there's got to be a lot of these people voting Democrat that are not liking the path they're going down, this progressivism. A little too progressive, a little too fast. I mean...
Right. Yeah. There's definitely some people who think that Trump didn't go far enough in protecting our rights during COVID. And so there's, I think the Kennedy is going to probably peel off a little bit more Trump support. And actually, Dawson, let's pull up this link here on the RFK line there. That is just an interesting article that I found that, most of the articles, when you look at these polls, it's usually just, this is going to help Trump, this is going to help Biden. This was an interesting one that says, in a three-way race, Kennedy would enter where Ross Perot finished. Kennedy has a better favorability numbers than Biden or Trump. It goes on, an American Values poll conducted by Zogsby Strategies of likely general election voters showed in a three-way race between Kennedy, Trump, and Biden, RFK enters the contest at 19%, with Trump and Biden each at 38%. So, I think it's one of those things where we would see a lot of the split off coming from both of them. I think there's definitely Democrat Biden voters who are saying, I can't believe that this dementia guy is in charge. There's a lot of Democrats who just know he's not mentally competent. And especially if the Democrats actually choose to run Joe Biden in 2024, I'd be shocked if they're dumb enough to do it. But if they actually do that, there's going to be Democrats looking for another alternative.
Right. And what do they really have on him other than they can call him an anti-vaxxer? I mean, really, that's about all they're going to try to smear him.
Right. They tried to call him an anti-Semite, and that's just obviously a sham. He's obviously, going to support Israel. Maybe, to what extent could be debated, but to just wildly throw around that term anti-Semitic, racist, everything that they like to call everybody, it's no good. And, I think it's just interesting. I would love to see Trump make RFK Jr. his VP just to avoid something like this. But, it does seem that RFK Jr. would kind of tap into that Ross Perot type voter who, typically leaned a little more conservative. But, and also I think that poll is actually probably pretty accurate. I mean, 19% is maybe a little higher than I would expect for him. But what I would expect is that, because if you look at the polls right now, it's basically, let's say Trump 52, Biden 48. It's usually something around those numbers. If you put a Kennedy in there, that would, detract a little more from Trump. So, I would think that, maybe 40% of Kennedy voters are from Biden, and then maybe 60% are from Trump. So, I mean, those numbers would make sense.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. And, I think Kennedy... From my perspective, there's an elephant in the room that needs their head chopped off, and I think he's focused on that elephant, though I don't agree with a lot of his politics. I think, he's, as far as the privileged class and what they're doing and a lot of the corporate corruption, especially pharmaceutical corruption, he's gonna stop that day one, I think. And you're right, I think they called him anti-Semitic because of some comment he made about the we're not going to say the word in case you're on YouTube, but the juice, that thing that they were putting in people's arms. He said something about how it was kind of, some racist comment about how more people were dying in a certain race, and then they twisted his words and said, anti-Semitic. So, yeah. And what would happen then? So, how many electoral votes when it's two people in the race? How many electoral votes does the president need? And does that change with three?
Yeah,
I
mean,
254?
Yeah, well, yeah, you're still required to get the 270.
270.
But let's say in a situation where RFK Jr. does get, some electoral votes. Let's say he finds out that New Mexico or some other state is just open-minded to him and they're willing to vote for him. If he were able to detract, a certain number of the electoral votes to where nobody can get 270, we would be put back into a position that we haven't had in a long time.
Who then decides?
It goes to the U.S. House.
So the House would decide who the president is in that situation. So this is a
right.
possibility.
It'd first go to the Electoral College, and then it would go to the House. But yeah, I mean, this is a real possibility if
Kennedy
RFK
runs a good campaign,
and
gets some electoral
specifically
votes,
target states. Instead of just doing well nationally, but choosing specific states that he can have an impact on, then we'd be in a whole crazy position.
So then the House would get to choose which House, the current House or the
2024 House, I believe, would be the one.
So then there's a lot of in play with.
You know what? Maybe not. I'm not sure. I'd have to refresh my memory on some of this constitutional stuff, because it's stuff that you just kind of read about and you're like, this will never happen. But in this position, that's a real opportunity here.
And then if that were the case, Trump would win. If it's the current House, they're going to give it to Trump, not Kennedy or Biden, obviously.
Maybe, but maybe not. There's a lot of rhinos in there too. So
that would give it to Kennedy, perhaps.
Maybe, you never know. But also, a lot of them are farmer shills themselves. So it'd be tough to see how the lines would actually shake down on that one. But it would be very interesting. And yeah, I mean, this independent run could be very interesting. Also, I'm seeing in the comments here, Action for Liberty, Jake says, Jake here, I am watching with great amusement. Oh, I just lost it. But he said, thanks, K-Wall. And let's see. Napkinator says, RFK wanting reparations now. That's very interesting. And let's see. Odd one, RFK Jr. is not a good VP for Trump. Kerry Lake all the way. That'd be an interesting choice. I know Kerry Lake is now running for the U.S. Senate. T-Wall says they need RFK to babysit the Trump and Biden debates. That'd be good.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that's the one thing that, with having him in the race is the added discourse, the more thorough conversation. I mean, we have a uniparty. Don't we want more voices at the table? I think that's important.
Let's see. Tucker says Kerry Lake is running for Senate. I say Kristi Noem, but if RFK Jr. does take Trump votes, maybe it is a good move to pick him as VP. Keep him in the corner like Trump did to Pence, which, that's exactly what Trump did to Pence. It's funny how Pence acts like he's got all these opinions now. It's like, where was this then? He's always trying to take credit for the things that Trump did. And let's see. Base Minnesota says, if a channel is still on YouTube, they're nowhere near the truth. And that's right. I mean, we're still on YouTube, but just barely. So we're hanging on by a thread there. And
I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
Doing
right.
my best here. I'm a dangerous person here to be talking the truth. Get us kicked off for good, so be careful.
Yeah.
Do you think Tulsi Gabbard's going to come into this situation anywhere? Do you think?
I really hope that she would run for the U.S. Senate in Hawaii. I think that especially because of the Maui situation and all of the skepticism that's going on there and how people are so sick and tired of the Democrats in Hawaii, I think that there's a real opportunity for that. She's being a little too hawkish on some of these wars that are going on now, which it's funny to see that coming from Tulsi Gabbard, but it does seem that she's being a little hawkish on some things, wanting to be a little too bomb-heavy than I would like to see. But I don't know if she has any presidential ambitions or anything like that, but I'd
maybe
prefer
Kennedy
to stay in Hawaii.
Would seek her out as a running mate.
Absolutely. I could see RFK doing that too. And, some people were saying Dennis Kucinich was going to be RFK Jr.'s VP.
He was running his campaign, but he is no longer, I think.
And, nobody's really getting to the bottom of that. And I think it's because Dennis Kucinich is a nice guy who's not going to spill the beans on anything. But my interpretation of the events is that Israel and Palestine was the dividing issue for them. There's no way fully of knowing that, but it seems as if that might have been the issue where they split off. Some people are accusing RFK Jr. of having a CIA plant as his campaign manager now. I think it's his daughter-in-law who used to work for the CIA. Some people are saying, she's not actually with the deep state, that she was, one of the good ones against it. I guess, there's no way of knowing unless you know her. But obviously RFK Jr. trusts her enough to, be running his campaign.
So our next topic here is the Israel situation. Did Gabbard say something about, more bombs there? Is that what you're talking about?
I think it has to do with the Israel stuff, right?
Okay. Yeah, so that was next.
And I haven't followed it too closely, so I don't want to speak too out of turn, but I know that there's definitely, people out there, anti-war activists who are calling her out right now.
Yeah, so that, next in line here, we're going to be on another, 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. So what's happening in Israel right now? What's the news you've been hearing, Jesse?
Yeah, this is pretty nuts because, everybody heard that Joe Biden went recently to visit Israel, speak with Netanyahu. So let's go ahead and pull up that article on line 11 there, Dawson, this Axios article, because what is very shocking is that the White House has gone and discussed whether the U.S. military should be involved in an attack if Hezbollah attacks Israel. So go ahead and scroll down just a little bit there. It says the White House has been discussing the possibility of using military force if Hezbollah joins the war in Gaza and attacks Israel with its huge arsenal of rockets. 3 U.S. officials and 1 Israeli official with knowledge of the situation tell Axios. And scroll down a little bit to the state of play right there. Since the Gaza war began on October 7th, tensions between Israel and Hezbollah have been increasing, with daily skirmishes between the parties along the Israeli-Lebanon border. Iran-backed Hezbollah has fired rockets and anti-tank missiles at Israeli outposts and forces on the border in recent days when Israeli airstrikes have hit Hezbollah positions. Several Hezbollah operatives and several IDF soldiers have been killed. So what this is saying right here is that Joe Biden and the deep state, the Tony Blinkens of the world, the Lloyd Austins of the world, which is Biden's defense secretary, they all want to get involved in this war. They want American presence. They're pretending like they don't want it. But when you're arguing that if Hezbollah decides to attack Israel, which, just to give you a warning, they're going to, and whether that be a false flag or whether they actually do it, Hezbollah is going to get involved in this. They're going to be fighting Israel. They'd be, they see it as their one opportunity to really get involved in this whole thing. So when Joe Biden and the U.S. is making statements like that, saying that we would be willing to commit our military, our own blood, our own, the best and brightest, within our country, that's where a lot of the military people are. It's good people who decide, I want to do something with purpose. I want to help this country. A lot of them are real smart, good people who, in a lot of cases should be out in the business world and, making our own country better from within. But, you can't blame people for joining the military at all because, it is a noble endeavor. But this war is not a noble endeavor for the United States to be involved in my opinion. We were talking before the show, what is the best proper response for the U.S. in this situation? We were kind of agreeing.
We want peace.
Humanitarian aid and peace, right?
Right. I mean,
I'm all for giving people food and water. We should be treating all innocent people in that way. We probably shouldn't be funding military weapons or, stoking the fire even more because it's just going to get hotter and then they're going to come after us.
Yeah, I mean, it's so nuanced, and you can't deny that it is to a certain degree kind of a religious war, and it's just unfortunate. I made some comments on the last show that I think upset some people, and I just to be clear, Israel has every right to exist, to defend itself 100%, and the United States should support peace, in my opinions. But it's so nuanced. How do you make peace? I'm the type of person that I like everyone. I love everyone. I've worked in hospitals where there's a lot of Muslims, Somalis, and they're good people. I was, we had good conversations. I don't think any of those people want violence or bloodshed. I don't want, Hamas is insane. What they did is crazy, and obviously there's crazy people in any group, and if you could just single out all these Hamas people and terminate them, then great. But I don't know how you do that. I think right now they're bombing the West Bank, and apparently there's not a whole lot of Hamas there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer. But what happened before Hamas attacked, dozens of Jews went to the third most holy site in Islam, which is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and did their religious rituals there, which is against the rules. It's under the control of the Jordanians, and there's been a treaty, I believe, for many, many years where the Jews have agreed they're not going to worship there because it's the third most holy site in Islam, and they flooded the mosque and started doing the Talmudic rituals. I don't have an opinion on that. I mean, I just think it's, cooler heads need to prevail, and if we're going to blow up the world based on some religious ideology, I'm not for it.
Yeah. No, and that's, I'm totally with you. And they want to make it seem like this peace position is radical. They want to make it seem like it's anti-Semitic. They want to make it seem like it's anti-Israel. You and I aren't anti-Israel.
Not one bit.
We're not anti-Semitic. A lot of us are just saying we don't want to have any kind of unintentional blowback onto our country. We want to keep our own people safe. And this is a war that's going to go on no matter what we do. I think that our role is, in a humanitarian way. We need to be fighting with the United Nations. We were talking before the show, too. The U.S. voted and vetoed a resolution by the United Nations calling for a ceasefire and calling for humanitarian aid. The only way that Israel is willing to even consider the humanitarian aid, willing to allow it to go to Gaza and the rest of Palestine, they say the only reason that they're willing to even consider that is just for the optics. They just want, support from the rest of the world. That would be the only situation where they would allow it. And that doesn't exactly sound like, a humanitarian way of approaching war. I think that there's a lot of things that Israel could be doing maybe to try to relieve some of the tension. A lot of these Palestinians, they hate Bibi Netanyahu. I'm not saying that that's a reason why they need to remove him from power or anything. I'm just saying that he's not the guy who's going to negotiate peace. He's not that guy. He's always going to be a warmongering guy who sees this as a major opportunity for him to consolidate his power. I wish it wasn't that way, but it's kind of the position that we're in. I also want to get to a couple of these quick comments here. I'd seen that Brad Ganser was arguing that we should have Ted Cruz for VP. I saw Whiskey Tango Foxtrot was saying that Kristi Noem should not be the VP. She doesn't add anything. Tucker was arguing Waka Flocka Flame Flocka. I think that'd be an interesting choice. I think Trump could, Trump is going to take a lot more of the black vote this time than he ever did before. So Waka Flocka Flame would definitely take it in a new direction. So which comment you pointing to there, Mark?
One below G. Balstead.
Let's see here.
There's no good Muslims.
They hate everyone, not just Christians and Jews. I disagree with that.
I disagree with that. And, we're in a position as a party in the GOP here where, in fact, recently a lot of Islamic people are pulling their kids out of the school because of the transgender thing. We're trying to get their votes.
Yeah.
No, there are good. I'm sorry to disagree.
Yeah.
But I've met I don't agree with a lot of the cultural things and
right, the burqas, the whatnot.
The way they worship, all that stuff. I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah.
But what we can't is the answer to kill them all. No.
Yeah, of course not.
No, we can't. We have to we have this planet. We live in this world. We have to try to live peacefully together. In fact, I think in Israel, there was years ago, Gunner would be able to chime in and give the details on this, but so that mount, the Temple Mount, the dome there, Al-Aqsa Mosque, there was some talk about moving that so that we wouldn't have to fight over this and moving it to Saudi Arabia, I think, and that fell apart. But how do we resolve this issue so we can all just live in peace? Or are we all, is there this push to create the environment in the religious ideology that will bring us to end times?
Right. And, it's one of those things, I get where people are coming from because radical Islam is much more radical than radical Christianity or radical Judaism.
It is.
It's very obvious that they take things to a whole new level, and especially when you read the Quran, there's definitely scriptures within there that, can be interpreted very badly, or they just are bad. Behead those that do not submit to Allah. That's a major one, and some people say it's just a parable. Different Muslims have different arguments on it, but there is something to say about that. But the majority of Muslims, and especially the ones that I've known and met, are peaceful people who, a lot of them even understand the regional problems there better than a lot of us, and they left for a reason. There's a reason they don't want to be there any longer. And it seems to me that, it's not going to be resolved if we try to make this some kind of racial, ethnic thing or religious, because it's not about the religion necessarily. It's about the political leaders who are the ones pushing this, and the military leaders who are pushing this. And I'll tell you, at the state fair, one of my favorite moments that had come up, there was a group of these Muslim girls who came and walked up to our state fair booth. I thought, oh boy, let's see what goes on here. And they said to me, "We love Trump. We love MAGA." And it was the most incredible, cool thing I'd ever seen. It was these girls. It was maybe like 9 of them, and they were all probably 18 to 22, all just these young Muslim Somalian girls. And they all said, "We want to make America great again. We love Trump." I thought it was the coolest thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just showed me that when they're not fed the propaganda that Republicans are racist, that we hate them, when they're told that we just want to make America great again, they're on board with that. They like that.
Yeah,
and
we want the most prosperity.
We should unify with everybody to because America first and liberty. These are broad things that everybody should love.
Yeah, we want the most prosperity for the most people. We are not racist. I've been in this political scene now for a couple years, and I haven't met one person that's racist. And the Muslim community agrees with us politically.
Yeah.
On most things.
Right. The last episode we were going over how, a lot of them are pulling their kids out of school with this LGBTQ agenda that they're being pushed down their throats. They don't want drag queen story hours. They don't want transgender books in their libraries. A lot of the Muslims are with us on the issues. We just have to go out and communicate that with them.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a massive Muslim community here in the Twin Cities, and I don't see any violence coming at us from them. I think they want to live in peace, just like you and I do.
Right. I'd imagine that their crime is proportional to, other races and things going on within the city. I don't think it's a unique markup or anything like that. So it's interesting, and I agree that, a lot of them are good people. There's bad ones as well. There's people that will never be able to win over. There's people who hate freedom. There's people who want to control each other. But there are a lot of good people who are Muslim who want to be free just like us.
Right, exactly. So let's move on to, and I don't think we'll play the segment there,
Got it,
Dawson, unless you think we should, Jesse. But if you're not paying attention to what's happened when it comes to pandemics and all that, so the World Health Organization, they've been working on their international health regulations, where if you've maybe heard of the pandemic treaty that they're going to get passed here. Well, they've been doing all this in secret. Everything they've been doing has been done in secret. And they're now, at this latest secret meeting, they've voted to allow themselves to subvert and break their own rules. The rule being that any amendments to this resolution, to this pandemic treaty, would have to be presented by January, so that they would have 4 months to look over these amendments and make sure it's right for every country. And what they did now is they voted to, the amendments don't have to be presented until the day before they vote, if you can even call it a vote. And so what is going to happen with this pandemic treaty, in international health regulations? These aren't even scientific medical experts. This is a bureaucracy that's going to decide whether or not you need some digital identification to move from here to there, or if digital money is going to play a role, if they're going to be able to shut you down on some social credit system. But the thing that really interests me and concerns me is, what is their rush to get this damn thing done this May? They could wait until the following May. If they can't figure out what amendments they want added, why can't they wait another year? What do they have in store that they need it done by May? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a major question for me too, because as you were telling me about this and as we were talking about it, it seems, what's the rush? What's the big rush, unless they're planning something, unless they really think they need to be prepared? But it's one of those things, just like in our government, where we need to pass the bill before we read it. No, let's read through the bill, and let's make sure that this isn't absolutely crazy. And especially when we look at an unelected bureaucratic organization like the World Health Organization, who our country shouldn't even be funding. I'd imagine the majority of the funding for WHO comes from us. I'd imagine
it did until Trump pulled it.
And then also China, right? China
and Bill and Melinda Gates, Gavi. I mean, I think most, you could, maybe a majority or close to, comes from Slick Billy.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense. And it's funny, the World Health Organization is just totally a globalist organization that is focused specifically, with pandemics. And it's scary that we have a globalist government that is trying to do this sort of thing because, we all know the World Economic Forum and everything that they're out there pushing. They're all a part of the same team. And it's anti-humanity. They want to treat us like ants. They want to, they don't care about we the people. And it's a scary time to be in because, as we were talking before, the government is so corrupt. We can't trust them, which, what a bad thing for your citizenry, that your citizenry can't even trust your own government. And we're supposedly the freest country in the world, but we can't trust our own government. It's scary. And, this World Health Organization stuff that you were describing, it's a whole new level of scary because if they want to push the stuff that we've talked about before, the vaccine passports, that you got to have a digital ID that they can withdraw all your money from you. This is scary stuff.
Digital medical records like HIPAA on steroids. Like they're gonna know everything about you and based on when you've been tested, or when you've been jabbed, where you can go, or when you have to be quarantined, or we don't know. That's the thing is it's all done in secret. We have no
vaccine
clue.
Credit score.
We have no idea what they're doing. Why would they do this in secret? It's a bureaucracy. And one world order, 2030, you'll own nothing, be happy. World Economic Forum. That's what's happening in the World Economic Forum. I should mention this too. If you're not familiar with the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, his top advisor, Yuval Noah Harari, wrote a book. This guy's insane. He's basically saying, he says, the useless eaters. What will we do with the useless eaters? Drugs and computer games. That's how they're going to keep us, occupied. That's who's got a huge voice in the direction that this world is going in right now. You're going to not be able to own a car. They want to get rid of private car ownership. I mean, this isn't even conspiracy.
Yeah.
They openly talk about this. This is their goals.
I mean, World War III is going on right now, and what are people doing? They're just scrolling on TikTok.
People,
you're right.
That's the thing is most people don't care. You're watching the show. You care. Thank God for people like you. But most people, they just can't wait to get home from work, crack a beer, and watch Dancing with the Stars. They can care less. And then if you try to introduce these subjects to them, they don't want to know.
Yeah.
It's too much. Too much for me. I just want.
And I can't blame some people like that. Sometimes it is just like that. That's way too far out there. They just don't know anything about it, or it's like they just don't want to know anything about it. Because once you start digging into it and you go, oh no, we're controlled by lizard pedophiles. It's like you can't go back. Once you start doing that digging, you can't really go back to thinking like, oh, it's just Republicans, Democrats, that's the system, and we gotta fight. And it's totally not like that. It's way more complex.
Yeah, once you do dive in, it's like I don't have my hobbies. I mean, thank goodness I have children. My kid just got third place at state mountain biking.
There you go.
So that was awesome. So, but beside that, I'm digging in all day. That's all I do anymore. I don't have any hobbies for myself. My hobby is trying to find truth. But what is more important than truth and knowledge, especially if you've got children or grandchildren? Because what kind of future are we gonna hand them? It scares the shit out of me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just to wrap up here, I'm seeing in the comments there we got Odd One. I don't think Odd One is fully with us, but appreciate you watching the show anyway, and providing your input on these issues, because these are all things that we need to be discussing, we need to be debating, and we need to get everybody's perspectives on. And I'm also seeing Whiskey Tango Foxtrot saying that Fauci for Gitmo and the World Health Organization is AKA the world Nazis. I'm right there with you. And let's see what Dave's Right is saying there.
School board candidates.
Yeah, school board candidates. Obviously, everybody should be paying attention to their local races. There's a good parent group. You may know this, Mark. I'd have to look it up on the fly here, but there's a good parent group who has put out a list of endorsed candidates that everybody should be going to follow that. Of course, do your own research on these candidates, but this is a great list that has been put out there so that people know
Parents
who the
Alliance?
Conservatives are. I think it is the Parents Alliance.
The candidate in my district is endorsed by the Parents Alliance, but now the lefties are saying that that's a racist organization. So they use this stuff against. She doesn't even really want to be affiliated because it's a nonpartisan seat. It gets so messy. It's crazy. This leftist movement is insane.
Yeah. So what people should do, go online to Google, look up Minnesota Parents Alliance 2023 Voter Guide. You're going to see all of the candidates, and you can find the ones for your area.
Vote.
And 100% vote, because this is going to be a low turnout election, which means that if we show up and we get to the polls, and you get all your buddies, you get all your friends, all your neighbors, all the conservatives that you know, get them to the polls for the school board, because if we can take back the school board, we can at least try to save the education for these young people and gut out the propaganda,
or at least get a voice in there to change things in the future. Like in my district, it's fully leftists, everyone on the board, and they're saying that they don't want this candidate. And I'm not even going to say her name, because if affiliated with this program, they're just going to tear her apart. But they're trying to say that she shouldn't be on the board because her opinion's different from the board, but they're all for diversity, equity, and inclusion. But they don't want any other voice than their own making these crazy decisions.
Yeah, and they want them all sold out to the teachers union. They don't want anybody who's going to question anything. They don't want anybody who's going to expose what's going on in these schools. They want good, faithful soldiers who will follow in line with whatever they want to do. And let's see. Also, Base Minnesota says, Mark loved the interview with Corbett. Been listening to him for over 10 years.
Yeah, so go to Rumble. Follow this channel, Truth Hurts on Rumble. And if you go to Rumble and search the Truth Expedition, you'll see my most recent interview is with I believe, the best news source in the entire world, James Corbett, CorbettReport.com. That interview kind of went viral, and he's got some important things to say. He's been following with the Children's Health Defense Network, the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty, so you can get all the juicy details there.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so thank you guys, all you guys putting the good stuff in the comments. I mean, and Dave's right. You're 100% right on that people should be paying attention to their school board races. It's one of the biggest actionable things that you can do right now. Be prepared to vote. Get all the people you know to vote, because we definitely need a school board takeover in this state.
We do. Get everyone you know to vote. It's really important. We need to get out the vote more than ever. These are important elections that can help our children not be faced with such a woke ideology. So I think that's it. Thanks for putting up with me. I'm actually Jake. The AI worked.
Yep, that's
worked.
right.
I didn't see any glitches throughout.
No glitches throughout the entire thing. I think it was pretty successful. And yeah, thank you guys to everybody who's watched. Make sure to like the videos so we get on the algorithm. Make sure that other people are being able to see this video for themselves too. So make sure to give it a like, share it with other people that you know, and make sure to subscribe to the channels as well.
Yeah, definitely subscribe.
And subscribe on Rumble, because we'll be taking off YouTube eventually here.
Yeah, it won't be too long. So thanks so much for tuning in to The Truth Hurts. We appreciate it.